Hmm.
We're talking about growing your audience. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about growing your audience with different methods and tactics. This week, we're talking about growing your audience using search engines.
It's the culmination, the ultimate. This is the fourth video
This
in
is
our
what we,
grow your
yeah,
audience and choose your audience growth stack series.
is the
And
pinnacle.
right, I don't know if we on purpose left it for last because it's like our favorite topic, basically, right?
I don't think
But
we
somehow we
did.
did.
I think this just happened in this order, and when we were doing our outlining, this is just the order we put it in, and I think
Yeah.
that's just how our brain works.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe we're like saving
And
the
when I
best for
mean
last.
our brain, I actually mean our brain.
Right, because we share one.
Yeah,
Just so everybody knows, we share one.
just so everyone knows.
Um,
So
yeah.
Jana, we're talking about search engines today, and the the search engines that we are talking about are going to be Pinterest, YouTube, and Google. With everyone's awareness who might be watching that other search engines like Bing and Yahoo and Microsoft, whatever, Edge are also in this conversation, but the majority of people I feel like use Google, even with those other tools. So that is the focus. Those are the three amigos
Yeah, they're like
we're going to chat about.
really the three largest or most significant search engines for marketers.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
we're obviously not going to talk about TikTok because of what happened yesterday in the United States House of Representatives.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. We should do a live on that actually. We could do like a pop-up live. Maybe we should do next week. Talk about it. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, so those are the three search engines. And we did three other videos. So if anybody is interested in learning about audience growth using social media, we have a whole video on that, or a live that we did. We have a whole live that we did on audience growth with your email list. And we did a whole live on audience growth using collaborations and getting in front of other people's audiences. So today we wanted to focus on the search engines. And I think that the biggest thing, I'll just state sort of the obvious, is that search engines are so good for audience growth because we're kind of talking. So let's back up a second. There's like these two levers that we need to be pulling in our business all the time, right? There's like
Mhm.
selling to our existing audience, nurturing and selling to our existing audience to make sales, but also growing your audience so that you have new people coming in to be nurtured and to potentially, make sales too, right? And so we're really focusing in this series on that other lever where we're growing our audience. And search engines are great for both, but search engines are particularly good for audience growth just due to the nature of them, due to the fact that there are people on them searching for things. And when we show up in those searches, we're typically being found by people who are already searching for the things that
Mhm.
we offer and help with and create content about, but don't already know us, right? Because they're not finding us on a search engine because they follow us already. They're finding us because they searched for something and we have something to give them and to show them and to offer to them in our content about
Mhm.
that. So just by that nature, that's why Heather and I get so excited about this topic, search engines, because they're just so powerful for audience growth just because of the way they exist and work and what they exist for, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the topic of today being Pinterest, YouTube, Google, we're going to kind of go over why they can be good for your audience growth, basic ideas that might help new people in the audience or people who've never maybe focused on search engines. I know a really large topic of conversation this year on Threads has been Instagram's lack of reach, changes in their algorithm making it harder for people in the ecosystem to get seen even by their own followers. So a really great antidote to that is having search presence somewhere
Yeah.
that is actually built to be a search engine. Like that's the way the platform built it to be. They're not just masking as a search engine. So
Right. Yeah. And there's two things.
I,
Oh, go ahead.
oh no, that is like what I'm looking forward to talking about today.
Cool. Yeah, me too. And there's two thoughts on that. Number one, if you really are new to search engines, remember that search engine content, when you put your content on search engines, it is more lasting. It doesn't just get lost in a fast moving news feed, pushed down by whatever was recently posted, because you post and then 5 minutes later everybody else posts, et cetera. but instead it lasts and lasts because people are searching for it, and the search engine algorithms are designed to show them the best match for what they're
Mhm.
looking for, not the most recent content necessarily that's been posted for what they're looking for. And in fact, on all these search engines, Google, YouTube, Pinterest, we often see that the content that we posted months and years ago performs like better than the most recent content because it takes a while to kind of find that audience and snowball, your results with the search engines. So just the way that we see them work as marketers kind of backs up this idea that if you want your content to be lasting and have people finding it all the time on autopilot, social media is not so good for that, but search engines are. And then the second thing is, you mentioned, Heather, the idea of if there are people who are listening who don't already have presence on a search engine, and that goes back to our idea with this Grow Your Audience series, which is we want everybody to be thinking about identifying and going all in on your own specific audience growth stack, which is
Mhm.
basically like one or two strategies from each category. So just as a quick reminder, we're not saying you need to be on, found on Google, page one, on Pinterest, on YouTube. You need to be in all those places. What we're really saying is maybe you should choose one of those three and add it to, or have it be an important part of your audience growth stack. But you don't have to do,
Yeah.
just like with all the other, additions that we did, you don't have to do all these things. You just want to pick one. And we really think that at least one of those should be from this category, the search engines, for the reasons that Heather and I just outlined with lasting content.
Yeah.
So,
And that's the goal, right? That we all want, is to have lasting content, sustainable content that feeds our businesses, that brings new people in without having to always recreate the wheel, without always having to adapt to a new algorithm. Now, I will say there are always going to be shifts in every single algorithm. There are algorithms for everything. There's algorithms for your app store. There's
mhm.
there's algorithms that are going to feed your dentist leads to get new people into his office, right? There's
Right.
algorithms for everything. But that's okay. Even with Google's shifting algorithms, we, Jana and I, cumulatively think and share an opinion that may be a little bit polarizing, but I mean, I love keywords. I love finding keywords that I know I can rank for. But much earlier on in my business, I never paid attention to that. And I still got traffic and I still got sales. And I still happened upon weird gaps that actually ended up really working out for my business.
Yeah, totally. I know exactly
So
what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
I just want to
That,
encourage you that even if you hear things like Google's new, search algorithms are changing,
yeah.
ooh, scary, like for real, like honestly, let's just keep putting content out people care about, that actual people are going to get value from, and and focus our energies and efforts there. Focus on what you can control.
Yeah.
So
I
hopefully
totally
by
agree.
the end of this conversation, you'll be fired up and like excited to create long form content, then share it on platforms like Pinterest.
Yeah, you can tell we're excited. We're like, oh my God, oh my God. And I know exactly what you mean by that gap. And I kind of, if you don't mind, I want to go out of order for a second here, out of our planned kind of order, and ask you, I think most people who are watching might not know what you mean. And maybe it's because they don't share a brain with you like I do. But when you say you found like weird gaps, can you tell us a little bit more about that when you were, getting found
Yeah.
on Google, or doing a Google search engine
Oh my
SEO
gosh.
strategy? What do you mean by finding weird gaps?
I've honestly done this with all of my websites, and I don't know how it happens. And it could just be a little bit of luck. It's not like I'm intentional with it. But one of the weird gaps I found was when I did my RV curtains on my travel blog. And I don't know if
Mhm.
this is what you were thinking I was talking about.
Mhm. Yeah.
But this is one of them. And I posted this blog post about it, and it wasn't even monetized in the beginning. It was I literally just went to like the local Michaels and bought fabric and supplies, and then like film or like took pictures of the whole process and posted a blog about it. And it went viral. And I actually
Mhm.
rank on Google for this, and I have for years. I've had other RV blogs do roundup posts of different curtain tutorials for RVs, feature me in their blogs. So
Yep.
it's so silly, but I not only ranked on Google, but also on Pinterest for this little gap that I just happened upon.
Yep.
I
And
did
what are
it
you
with,
calling it a gap? Like, what's the gap?
there was obviously a gap in the content that was being created in this space. So
About
there,
curtains.
yeah, there was a
Okay.
really high need
Yep.
for curtains and for creating curtains or making curtains and like getting rid of ugly valance boxes in an RV. So I don't know if it was just like the pairing of words that I put together because I was just
Yeah,
using my natural voice. I was just being myself.
there you go.
Those balance boxes in RVs, if you're watching this and you've ever been in an RV or seen one, you know that those boxes around your window blinds are hideous.
Yeah. And
They're
hard to
hung
clean, right? Aren't they hard to
ugly.
clean?
They're just they're awkward and you hit your body on them and it's just weird. So anyways, I found a gap.
Yeah.
And the gap was that people needed a solution that wasn't already being offered, or they wanted something new, something easy, something seamless. And I ended up providing that.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. Okay. Thank you for digressing with me. And thanks for our listeners for
Yeah.
their patience with me kind of teasing that out. But I love that. And I think it really does go to show and really underscore this philosophy that both you and I have sort of discovered and share. Um, and for me, I'll just speak for myself for a moment. The students and clients that I work with when it comes to SEO on Google, um, I find that the best strategy for them is simply to write the content that they know their audience needs to be ready to buy.
Yeah.
And because we focus on content that is about their real problems and the real questions they're asking, we naturally end up ranking on Google, but we don't start in the beginning when they first start a blog. And my people, they start a blog in order to get clients. That the
Yeah.
blog, they want their blog to get clients, not for their blog to get tons of traffic for ads or affiliate links or anything like that. It's for getting clients is the strategy that I teach. And so if they focus on simply writing the things that people need, they end up ranking, and this is how I ended up ranking and how you did, just like you were saying, without
Mhm.
necessarily trying and without having to fit their whole strategy around keywords, which for a lot of people can really stymie their creativity in the beginning and make it feel like there are too many spinning plates to even get started with a blog. So
Yeah.
I really encourage people when it comes to Google SEO in particular to not think about it too much when they're starting their blog. You can always look at it down the road. I always say, publish at least 10 posts. And that's a lot, really, because in my grand scheme
Yes.
of things, I only want people to publish 12 or 20 anyway in the big picture. And then they can stop essentially and repurpose. But if you publish 10 posts and then you give it some time, you'll naturally see what things rank and what doesn't, and you can kind of double down
Mhm.
on Google SEO a little bit. But if you try to start with it, it doesn't end up working. So I guess my point, I'll just wrap it up by saying I'll land my plane, as we used to say in Clubhouse, by just saying that if you're listening and you're thinking about starting a blog and you're a coach or a strategist or a service provider, but you're worried about, having to figure out SEO or know SEO or use SEO tactics before you start, please don't worry. Just start writing the things you know your audience needs. And you
Yeah.
can worry about Google SEO down the road if you want to as an audience growth strategy. But you don't have to start that way. And I think we've been kind of like led to believe that it's not worth starting a blog unless you're an SEO ninja first. And the
No.
fact of the matter is that just isn't the way it happens. Everyone I know, me, Heather, and all of our friends and people that I talk to all the time who are strategists and service providers and coaches, if they rank on Google now, it's not because they set out to do that before they started their blog. They started their blog and eventually they naturally ranked on Google. And then
Mhm.
they learned more about how to capitalize on that. But it doesn't happen the way we think it does sometimes in the wild in reality. So that's my little manifesto on that. And we can move on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, so really getting your content on your website, or if
Mhm.
you're filming YouTube videos, just getting your content on to YouTube. Now, I
Yep.
will say I did start because of the timeline of when I started my YouTube channel. I did start my YouTube channel with SEO in mind. There's really a couple different ways you can start a YouTube channel. You can do it with SEO in mind first, or you can do it by capturing and entertaining audiences. I am not here to entertain you. I am not a
Mhm.
show company. So I did start my YouTube channel with SEO in mind because at that point when I'd started it, I was already moving into learning SEO. Like my
Mhm.
blog was already this YouTube channel's original foundation was my blog, heatherfarris.com.
Mhm.
And I had already been creating content there for a number of years.
Yep.
So
You,
in the
you
beginning,
had
I had started with that body of work. wanted to make YouTube videos, was already starting to audit and update the blogs for SEO at that point,
Mhm.
and started creating YouTube videos with the SEO in mind. So just full transparency, you guys know I like transparency. That is how this YouTube channel started, was with SEO in mind. And it has been the center focus
Yep.
and the
Because
growth.
you had already mastered the basics in your marketing.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, makes sense.
And I didn't start with YouTube. Like I said,
Right.
I started with my blog and Facebook groups.
Hmm.
So
Yep. Yep. And so I know we kind of want to talk about each one, each search engine, or that's kind of how we had thought about approaching
yeah.
this. But one thing I just want to say too, since we just talked about how like I don't recommend you starting your blog with Google SEO in mind, or not necessarily in mind, but like obsessing about about Google SEO. You did start your YouTube with a keyword strategy. The third search engine that we want to talk about today is Pinterest, and we'll circle back and talk about all of them again. But with Pinterest, Heather and I both teach a method where you do start with the idea of, okay, what keywords should I use on Pinterest? What are people searching for on my topics? So there's
Yes.
some nuance to this conversation. And when you're talking about, YouTube and Pinterest, they both have different levels of complexity, and Google has a much higher level of complexity. There's a lot more moving factors with Google when it comes to SEO than there is on Pinterest, for example. So, when you start Pinterest, it does make sense in my mind to start with a handful of keywords. So it
Mhm.
depends on which search engine you're talking about. When I say that I don't think you should obsess about SEO when you start a blog, again, as a coach, service provider, strategist, not as someone who is going to, monetize with ads or whatnot. Uh, that is specific advice to Google, and I feel differently, to be honest, about YouTube and Pinterest when it comes to where the keyword strategy falls in. So
Yeah.
kind of an interesting conversation, but
So why don't we start with Google?
Pinterest. Oh,
Pinterest?
you want to start
Sometimes
with
you have
Pinterest?
a different brain.
Every once in a
Yeah, let's start
while.
with Pinterest. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's our bay, right? Like Heather and I both got our businesses started, at least in this shape and form, as dedicated Pinterest strategists. And we both still are Pinterest strategists. We stay up on what's going on the platform, although the more years go by and the more changes we see, the more we realize that it's really mastering the basics that is the
Mhm.
most important rather than trying to pivot with every single little change that,
Yeah.
that Pinterest decides to make this week, that gives you the long-term like longevity on the platform. But I think that like Pinterest basically is like very underutilized still. I mean, we've been saying that now for 8 years, right? But it's still underutilized.
Mhm.
It's a very powerful platform that is a search engine. And a lot of people who are watching might not even realize Pinterest is a search engine, but indeed it is. And we talk about that a lot in our content and here on Heather's channel for certain. And it can give your content exposure to a very highly targeted audience because again, like we were talking about, Pinterest, people go to Pinterest looking for things to do and try and buy, and they search for things, and then they can find you. Even if they're not following you, Pinterest still serves them your content if Pinterest thinks it's a good match for their query or a good match for their interests based on how Pinterest evaluates what they like to see in their feed. So it's really, really powerful for audience growth in that way. So I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you're a thyroid health coach, and people search for things like foods for Hashimoto's or healthy thyroid natural remedies. I just was looking at my notes because those are actual searches that are being searched a lot on Pinterest. And your coaching, consulting, or service based business, in this case, coaching, helps with that. People search for those things. Your content can come up as a match for those things for people who didn't know that you were out there, but are looking for the kinds of solutions you offer, because you talk about in your content things like foods for Hashimoto's and natural remedies for thyroid support. So that would be kind of like a quick overview, I guess, of how it works. So that's the basics with Pinterest.
Yeah. And people literally don't need to follow you. I get so many comments on my YouTube videos here
Yep.
on the channel about, people wanting to know how to grow their followers because that is primarily with social media important up
Hmm.
until recently, at least with this weird Instagram happenstance. But
Yeah.
um That's not the case on Pinterest. People do not need to follow you in order to see your content regularly. If they engage with it once because they found you in search and even just click on your pins, they're going to see a little sprinkling of them. If they go even further and save your pins, they're going to start to see even more from you. And if they do all of the things with your pins, visit your
They
profile,
just
they're going to
spelled.
see even more from you. So
Mhm.
Pinterest kind of has these signals that tells them someone is really interested in your content, even if they don't follow you. So,
Exactly. Exactly. And it's so funny because I actually just like spilled my coffee. I actually have a blog post that does really well Google SEO wise. It's a little meta. Hopefully I didn't just like make a huge. Oh yeah, I did. I totally spilled my
I
coffee on my shirt.
spilled earlier at the beginning of the live, I spilled on my
Oh,
spilled some water on my thing, and I was like, let me mute
oh,
myself so
great.
I can share some paper towels.
Well, great. Well, great. Well, great. Well, the good news is I don't have sugar in my coffee, so hopefully it won't stain my nice white shirt. But I have a blog post that does really well on Google that's like how to get your first 1,000 followers on Pinterest. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, like I like racked my brain a little bit about whether or not, and this is something I have in our tips for later on if you're for people about whether or not I wanted to even have a blog post like that because followers aren't as important as on Pinterest as they are on other channels. But the fact of the matter is people want to know how to grow their followers, and there are a lot of queries for it. So I decided to answer it. And I certainly acknowledge that fact in the blog post as well. So I'm sort of like creating this top of funnel content with the things that I know people want and are asking, even though it's not what I think is the most important topic, because I know that your number of followers on Pinterest isn't really that big a deal like it is on other channels. So it's kind of like a little, kind of a little moment there, a little learning moment, I guess. But yeah, so we love Pinterest. And if there's anyone who wants to learn more about Pinterest, Heather, I know you have a Pinterest for beginners playlist that I send a lot of people to here on the
Word
YouTube
on the
channel.
street is I have an entire YouTube channel about Pinterest.
Yes. But if someone's getting started though, right? Isn't that playlist a
Yeah,
good
the
one?
beginner playlist is actually a really great place to start. I need to
Okay.
update it again. I try to keep it updated 2 to 3 times a year, just
Yeah.
as I add new videos or refilm things. I haven't updated it in a while, so I will make that a task to do, and you guys can visit the beginner playlist or just go and visit the videos and look at my most recent published stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
And I would say if you're looking through Heather's YouTube videos and you're looking to try to learn the basics, if you're new to Pinterest and you might want to add this to your audience growth stack, look for um like videos about how to understand how keywords work on Pinterest. That's always a really important lesson for beginners.
yeah.
And like what types of things to pin, I would say, would be like a good place to get started, in addition to Heather's beginner playlist, which she'll be updating soon.
And I'm actually publishing a video about keywords today,
Hmm,
actually.
perfect. What's the
Um,
what's the angle?
it's basically like for people who still don't know where to start when finding keywords, how to take your Google keywords and validate them on Pinterest and use them for Pinterest.
Hmm, interesting.
So,
That's a good, I like that. It's a good,
'cause a
good
lot of
strategy.
people might come to Pinterest understanding blogging, but they still don't understand Pinterest and keywords over here. So I'm just trying to
Right.
help people to bridge the gap and give people more options for creating a keyword strategy.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great idea. One of my basic like intake questions whenever I was doing done for you Pinterest strategies for people and done for you Pinterest keyword research was, do you already have a list of keywords for Google? And
Mhm.
most of them didn't, but if they did, I wanted to know about it beforehand because that is a great place to start when you're working on your keyword plan for Pinterest. So I love
Yeah.
that.
So that's it. It'll be up later today.
Awesome. 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 What do you want? Which one should we talk about next? Want to do Google or YouTube? Since I
Let's do
demanded
Google.
to start with Pinterest, you can choose.
Let's do Google because not everyone is
Yeah.
going to be interested in creating a YouTube channel.
Hmm.
So we'll save that one for last.
All
But
right.
most people should at least have a basic website where you
Hmm.
live on the internet, and that's where
Yep.
Google's come in.
Hmm. Exactly. Um, I think that most people think about blogging and long form content on your own website as a strategy for Google.
Yep.
I already sort of talked about how I feel about that because I think your blog isn't just for Google. It's actually, especially again, if you're a service-based business, it's more about having a body of work that warms up and converts your audience on autopilot without you having to show up for them personally and answer all their questions, et cetera. But definitely a blog can be really helpful for Google SEO. And again, that can happen very naturally. It doesn't even have to mean that you're incorporating keywords, or you can be more strategic and incorporate keywords. But one thing to know about Google SEO too is that other pages on your website can also be optimized for Google, like your homepage and your about page, and even your services pages as well. So that's something to think about. And Google is probably of the three, it's the more complex and probably the most competitive. And it can probably, I would say overall, tell me if you agree with this, Heather, that Google, probably all things considered, can take longer for success with versus YouTube or Pinterest. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
takes longer generally with Google, but it's well worth it. Heather and I both rank on Google for certain things, and it's great to get that traffic eventually once you are in the stage of your business and your content creation where you are seeing that happen. But it does take a while.
Mhm.
I know I don't know when this started being a dirty word, but I want to reclaim it. It really is a long game. Um, as are most search engines, but I think Google is like kind of the longest of them. And just as an aside, like when did long game become a dirty word? Like people are like, don't call it a long game anymore. And I'm like, what's wrong with a long game? Like when you think about the term long game in movies, basically it means like someone's playing the long game. Like it's like this like strategic long-term thing that's happening with like a goal at the end. It's always been a good thing.
Yeah.
And then recently I've been like hearing people say, don't call the engines a long game. And I'm like, why? There's nothing wrong with long games. They're good.
And
They give you good
in
results.
yeah, in all actuality, like the usually long term, long game ends up being more sustainable over a long span of
Right,
time.
right. Exactly.
I don't want to have to do this forever. Like I don't want to have to create content forever. So, um, if I can create really good content and keep it up to date,
Yep.
and people still keep finding it on search engines, even as search engines change, as long as I'm still giving people that search for me on Google what they want,
Hmm.
I'm okay with it if it takes time.
Yeah. Right. Yep. Me
But
too.
honestly, also remembering that the more authority your website builds, the more trust with Google your website builds, the more keywords you rank for, the more content people consume and are pleased with, then that time it takes to actually rank for keywords is going to lessen.
Hmm.
So there was actually, here's an example for you guys. Back last year, Jana wrote a blog post. She got it out before I did on Pinterest for ChatGPT. Then I created a YouTube video on it. I didn't know she had written a blog post on it. She didn't know I was making a video on it. We had just talked about Pinterest for, Pinterest and ChatGPT, right? So she creates a blog. She ranks in the first spot almost immediately because no one else is talking about it.
Be
Swooped it up.
because
Then
I already have strong domain authority. That's
right.
one reason,
And
right? Yep.
we're on a clubhouse and we're chatting about this topic. And she's like, oh, I made a post about this. I wrote a blog post about it. Let me link it in the clubhouse room. And I was like, oh, I'm publishing a YouTube video on that next week and we're getting a blog out about it. I'm coming for you, Jana.
Oh yeah.
And
So funny.
literally within 2 to 3 weeks of publishing mine,
Hmm.
I was already right up next to Jana.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, if someone started their business, this year or last year and they didn't have a lot of authority on their blog already, if they hadn't already written 80 plus posts that Google
It
indexes
might
and
be,
sees as high quality, like I have, or they, like in Heather's case, Google knows she has a YouTube channel. They know that some of her popular YouTube videos are embedded on her blog and she's been doing it for, 7 or 8 years.
mhm.
Other people who weren't in that same position wouldn't be able to just slap together a ChatGPT for Pinterest blog post, which frankly I did, to be honest. I mean, there's good stuff in there, but I just put it out quickly. They wouldn't automatically be able to rank quickly. So when we say it's a long game, it's not necessarily just like it's going to take each blog post a long time to rank. That's what your point is, Heather, right? It's
Yeah.
about the aggregate, the whole picture
Mhm.
of your domain authority. And domain authority meaning literally the authority that Google sees janaomedia.com has, because that's my domain.
Yeah.
And Heather's in her case, heatherfarris.com. So yeah.
Yeah. So just
Interesting.
know that over time, things are going to become easier and faster
Yep.
for you. But that comes with consistency of creating high quality content that people enjoy consuming.
Yep. And that's true for all three search engines and really all search engines. And that's why we say they have kind of a snowball effect. They
Right.
don't just grow. It's like they grow exponentially. So in the beginning, you feel like you're not making much progress and you have this little snowball and it's growing, but very slowly. But
Hmm.
over time, the more you roll it, the more you're like, wow, like this thing is growing not just at the same pace that it did in the first year that I did it. Now it's growing much faster and exponentially. It snowballs over time. That's how
Yep.
all these search engines work if you have a good strategy.
Hmm. Love it.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, when you are thinking about your website, like Jana mentioned, you can also work on your homepage, your about page, your service pages. These are
Hmm.
all things that you also want to think about ranking on Google. And in my content strategy course, in my membership, and we're doing a deep dive on blogging this month in the membership as well.
Mm,
One of the things that I talk about is making sure you are optimizing specific areas of your website that you might forget about. So if you are writing blogs,
perfect.
having optimized blog categories that are
Hmm.
optimized for search. So if one of your blog categories is Pinterest schedulers, then that category page, Pinterest schedulers, and the description that goes with it and the content that's put on the page is all optimized for that keyword. Also, things like your menu links. You don't want your blog link in your menu to say, Mama's Place. You want it to say like breastfeeding blog
Hmm.
or Pinterest blog in my case,
Hmm.
what people are looking for.
Yeah,
So no
makes a lot of
cutesy.
sense.
We're not getting cutesy.
Right.
We're going straight to the point.
Right. Straight to the words that humans use to look for the thing that it is, as opposed to being cutesy. We talk about that a lot with, over on the Pinterest marketing side as well, with using keywords that, for your board titles a lot. That's where we see it a lot on Pinterest, where people are cutesy with their board titles.
Yeah.
Like the example I used to use sometimes when we used to do those Pinterest audits over on Clubhouse was like if you have a board that's for vegan desserts,
Yeah.
don't call it like yum 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 plants, call it vegan desserts. Because nobody
Yum,
goes searching
yum,
for yum
play.
yum yum plants on Pinterest, but they do go searching for vegan desserts.
Exactly. That is so funny because people probably did come to us. I cannot believe how many of those audits we did, Jana.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an era. It was an era for sure.
So many.
We put out so much good content over there on Clubhouse. I wonder if any of the replays are still there or
I don't
if they
know.
still have replays in the house that we had in the end. I have no idea. Should probably duck in there one of these days and find out. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else about Google before we turn to talking a little bit about the basics of YouTube?
No. Yeah,
Okay.
I think we can move on for now.
All right. The one thing I'll say about YouTube, and then I think I'm just going to pass the mic over to you. Speaking of Clubhouse days, Heather, because you're the YouTube expert here, not me, but I think YouTube is a really interesting mention in
Hmm.
this live video we're doing right now about growing your audience with search engines, because it's actually a long form content platform and a search engine.
Yep.
So in high leverage content, my program that I teach, it's not just for people who want to blog. You can also use the strategy and my outlines and everything for episodes if you have a podcast and if you have a YouTube channel. So um, YouTube long form videos are, in my mind, can be your main long form content. I know for you, you do both a blog and a YouTube channel. But most of the people that I work with only have like bandwidth for one long form content
Hmm.
platform. And so for me, if they want to do a YouTube channel but no blog, that works. That works from the perspective of the high leverage content strategy. So yeah, so a YouTube channel is really interesting in that way. It's long form content, but it's also a search engine. And your long form content lives on the search engine as opposed to the other two search engines we're talking about, where your long form content doesn't live on that search engine. It's
Hmm.
just that that search engine leads them to that long form content. So it's an interesting double whammy dynamic, and I think it's really good. I know it serves you well. So
Yeah, it's another ecosystem. So
mhm.
much like Instagram is an ecosystem, YouTube is an ecosystem.
Yeah.
Pinterest is also an ecosystem for pins, but it does lead people off the site, and that is their intent.
Hmm.
It's to lead people away from their platform
Right.
because they're going to come back to Pinterest.
Hmm.
So YouTube obviously doesn't really want to lead people away from the platform.
Right.
And if you're listening, YouTube, you know I'm right. Okay. Don't penalize me.
But it's
Um,
still good. I mean, it still drives a lot of traffic for you, right? Even
it
though they
does.
don't, yeah.
It does. And it's not that they don't want people to benefit from you elsewhere.
Hmm.
It's just they do prioritize and incentivize people, do keep people on their platform for a
Right.
while.
Hmm.
They want people watching videos and seeing ads, and that's how they make their money. So,
Right.
with YouTube being an ecosystem, someone is going to come to this platform and they're going to search for something like, you know, how to set up a Pinterest pixel.
Hmm.
And then they're going to be served a bunch of content prioritized usually above the fold. There is kind of a fold on YouTube with the new stuff first, and then it's kind of go into the older stuff as you scroll down. Um,
Yeah.
so with that, you know, knowledge, when you're armed with that knowledge and you know what you're looking for as far as keywords and writing your titles and descriptions, then you really do, even as a small channel, have the ability to show up at the top of search results when people are looking for you.
Hmm. How big is your channel now? This channel that we're on?
That's a great question. I think we're over 12.5. 12,
12,500 subscribers?
yeah.
Amazing.
I can't recall at the moment.
Yeah, that's so
So
amazing.
even like Pinterest and obviously Google, you don't have to subscribe to anyone's blog in order to find them on Google. You don't
Hmm.
have to follow someone on Pinterest in order to see their content. The
Hmm.
same with YouTube. In fact, a lot of the people that watch my videos when they first find me are not subscribed to the YouTube channel. They become subscribers over time.
Hmm.
So I don't actually ask people to subscribe to my YouTube channel because I don't want dead weight.
Yeah. You just want
So
people to, you want the people who are watching your stuff and thinking, oh, wow, I want to learn more from her. And therefore, I'm going to take it upon myself to take the initiative to go ahead and subscribe to the channel so I know I'll see more of her in my feed. You don't
yeah,
want people who are just going to knee jerk react, say, okay, I'll do it when you're like, subscribe, 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 right?
right.
Okay.
Yeah, so they don't need to be subscribed to your YouTube channel in order to see your content.
Mhm.
And as soon as you do engage with someone's content, the algorithms are going to start feeding them more of your videos because they
Mhm.
think you're interested in this.
Yep.
They are also likely going to feed videos to you from your competitors.
Hmm.
So from my, like in this instance, let me reframe that because that sounded weird. So if Jana were to upload YouTube channels to her channel and I go and watch her videos
Yep.
and they're about Pinterest, then they're likely also going to see A, B, and C channels that are also about Pinterest because
Hmm.
it's a people are also interested in this topic, so we think you might also be interested in it. And
Right.
that's just a really great way for YouTube to like offer an olive branch for newer, smaller channels to get seen.
Mm,
And
yeah.
there's actually nothing wrong with it. And it's a strategy that I actually employ on the YouTube channel called drafting.
Hmm.
Think of like race cars racing down the highway or like on a racetrack.
Yep.
The car in second place, that's right behind the car in first place, is doing a lot less work keeping up because they're drafting on the other car. So a lot of my YouTube videos that have done well over time or have taken off quickly, it's because I'm employing this little strategy called drafting in
Cool.
order to show up in that up next category on YouTube or to get served to those people in that you may also be interested in algorithm.
Yep. So if people want to learn more from you about YouTube strategy, because you're primarily a Pinterest strategist and a content
Yeah.
strategist, but to me, you're like the go-to expert for YouTube. So because you do it for your own business, which, it in some ways makes you more of an expert than people who, do it for clients or are just teaching it but haven't done it for anyone in a long time. So if people wanted to learn more from you about YouTube strategy and starting a YouTube channel, do you have videos on that on your YouTube channel, or do you have stuff in the membership for people like that?
Yeah, I have a content strategy course in my membership where I talk about blogging and YouTube strategy,
Hmm.
uh, or just booking a paid call, like a pick my brain call, and we can just chat about it. But,
Yeah.
I'm very open and transparent when it comes to talking about strategies for people.
Hmm.
Um, happy to brainstorm with people on that, but obviously understanding that nothing is guaranteed.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah.
But if they wanted to learn more about the drafting strategy or other how
Yeah.
you're doing it or how you're finding accounts to draft, things like that, they could book a pick my brain
Mhm.
type of call with you. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I wanted to, if you, unless there's anything else we want to talk about YouTube, I wanted to kind of like bring it all together with some kind
Yeah.
of like, I guess tips, if you will, on what to do if you are adding either Google or YouTube or Pinterest, one of these search engines that we're talking about
Yeah.
today, to your audience growth stack. So remember, this series of 4 videos we did is all about these 4 different types or broad categories of audience growth strategies. And the one we're talking about today is search engines. So for people who are wanting to add one of those, I wanted to kind of like provide some tips. Was there anything else you want to talk about YouTube before we do that though?
No, I'm all right.
Okay. All right. So I think the first thing I want to say about that is that long form content is going to be your best friend if you are wanting to show up on search engines or on a search engine, let's say, because you've decided to pick one to work on for your audience growth stack so you can have this more lasting, visibility and audience growth that happens without you having to show up every single day for it to happen, right?
Yep.
So all of these platforms, we're talking about these 3 platforms, are all geared towards providing users with comprehensive, authoritative, and engaging content. And in order for that to happen, your content has to be detailed and deep enough and unique enough, which requires, I think, when you're creating something unique, you need it to be a little on the longer side to be able to incorporate those unique details that come from your particular expertise and authority. We could talk about like Google, for example, has the EEAT,
Mhm.
stuff.
Eat method. Yep.
What?
The eat method.
Yeah, right. EEAT stands for on Google, it's expertise. What's the other E?
I don't know.
Okay, something authority, and is it trustworthiness? We'll have to look it
Yeah,
up. Um, but
I
basically the
think it is.
idea, yeah, the idea is that you need more detailed content to be able to convey those things. And search engines really just favor longer form content overall because it is that comprehensive, authoritative content that you go deep on.
Yep.
So that's my first, I guess, tip, I would say. And I have a few more, but Heather, do you want to hop in on that, or if there's anything you wanted to add?
Well, just remembering one of the methods for satisfying eat, and I talked about this on Monday in the deep dive for creating content that converts, because that's what my membership members really wanted to know about,
Mhm.
was how to create content that converts, whether that's to a lead to your email list or a sale to a product or, booking you for a service.
Right.
You really want to answer people's questions and anticipate their next step. Because
Yep.
if you can light that path for them and you can show them where to go and why to trust you, then that is going to help Google to rank you in this search and
Mhm.
help you to show up and satisfy those eat method needs.
Yeah.
So just remembering that the people also ask questions exist. You don't need
Yep.
to come up with things on your own. You can literally just use the search engine and to showcase your expertise through your experience, your work with clients or students, through your own expertise with your own thing. So if I wanted to write a blog post about how to start a YouTube channel,
Mhm.
I could do that
Yep.
and talk about my experience and show my numbers, and that's really what it's about, is it's sharing and caring.
Yeah, and it's about providing unique insights that people can't find anywhere else, essentially. So that doesn't mean we're on a little bit of tangent, but that doesn't mean it has to be completely unique and unlike anything anyone's ever seen before and whatever, but it has to be unique in a way, essentially. It has to be from your own personal experience. For example, the fact that you didn't just talk about the different options for curtains in your RV, but the fact that you showed people the process that you went through to, source the materials and make the curtains. Like you actually did that. That was experience. And the acronym, by the way, I just looked it up, is EAT is experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And so I always forget the other E because expertise and experience sound kind of similar. But if you want to look up EEAT, you can find lots of great information about it. And there is a subtle difference between, the concept of experience, your content showing your experience versus, your expertise. They're a little bit different. So
Seems like it should be the same, but I could see where that wouldn't
yeah.
make
Yeah, or actually authoritativeness and trustworthiness can kind of seem like they overlap too. They all kind of overlap a little bit, but if you read about it, you'll notice that they do have some nuances that make them different.
Mhm.
Yeah, another tip I have is like if you're going to add one of these three search engines to your audience growth stack, be sure you have a way, and you started to talk about this a little bit, Heather, to capture the leads. So have an easy yes lead magnet, something that's really easy for people to say yes to, whether it's a quick downloadable or something like that, or a quiz or something that's just as an easy yes, that
Mhm.
is something that people really, really, really want. And I feel like every video we talk about lead magnets, it seems like, and we talk about this great training that Heather did on how to come up with a lead magnet topic that converts like crazy. Make sure, remember like your first lead magnet may not be the best, but just go ahead and at least create one and get into action with the goal of medium term, long term, having a lead magnet that a lot
Yeah.
of people really, really want. Because if you are showing up on search engines for people, that's great, but you need to have a way for them to raise their hand and identify themselves to you so you can follow up with them. If people find you on the search engine and they just watch, but you don't have a way to kind of keep them in your ecosystem, which to us, we both agree the best way to do that is via email, you're kind of losing out. So make sure you have a way to capture the leads of these people who don't already know about you, but are using a search engine and finding you because you have the content that the search engine thinks answers their question the best or gets to the thing that they're looking for the best. So make sure you have a way to do that. And then we talked a little bit about this for a moment earlier when we had that little moment, but don't be afraid to create, if you're on search engines, don't be afraid to create some content that covers the basics. A lot of times I think people are either bored with talking about the basics because we're a few steps ahead and we don't really want to answer those really basic questions because they feel boring to us. But on search engines, that's one of the ways to create great top of funnel content that people find is by answering the most common questions. And a lot of times those are beginner questions. So don't be afraid to do that. And even if you see other people already answering those questions, you're going to do it in a unique way. And that's why where the EEAT thing comes in. And, the Pinterest algorithm, the YouTube algorithm, they also have, versions of that, although YouTube's is probably the same as Google's because Google owns YouTube. But don't be afraid to cover the basics. You're always going to put your own unique spin on it anyway, whether that's because of your own experience, your own style, but don't shy away from covering those basics. That was one of the tips I wanted to say. If you're going to add one of these three platforms or, any real a search engine really to your audience growth stack, you won't really be able to grow your audience as quickly or as effectively if you're not willing to cover the basics. So go ahead and cover them, right?
I love
What do you
that.
think about that? Yeah.
I love that. Cover the basics because we have to
Mhm.
remember most people don't know what we know.
Yep. Right.
And I think a lot of people are afraid to talk about things in depth or even to cover the basics because they feel like it's silly and like everyone knows this, but do they?
Right. Do they? Exactly. Usually not is the
Yeah.
answer. And even people who do, like they still like to touch base with the basics anyway,
Mhm.
for various reasons, which we could get into from a human psychology perspective, but they do. So it's a really, really good strategy, especially on search engines, to be making sure you're covering those basics.
I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people. I even had a very similar conversation with someone I had coffee with yesterday
Hmm.
that said, one of the reasons why I'm afraid to hire this out is because I don't understand how it works. So how am I supposed to
Yeah.
trust that the person I'm hiring out is going to get me the results?
Hmm.
And I think this fear comes from people hiring out too fast or too soon and getting burned. So I always want to empower people to understand the thing that they're hiring out.
Yeah.
That way, and you feel good about when you do hire it out that someone is working diligently for you and getting you the results that you can understand how it works and that you want.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. It's a really good
So,
point. And then I guess the last tip that I have that I want to convey to people if you're looking to add a search engine, hopefully one of these three search engines to your audience growth stack,
yep.
is don't skip keyword research. For again, for me, that means on Pinterest or YouTube. On Google, I think because Google has such a complex and smart algorithm, I think you can just write for people and you'll naturally show up on Google. But for YouTube and Pinterest, I think it's really important to have a keyword plan. And a lot of people, especially on Pinterest, start their Pinterest profiles really without any keyword strategy. So remember to learn about keywords, especially for Pinterest. I'll just say for Pinterest. I think that I'll let you speak about that for YouTube, but
Yeah, no,
Mhm.
I think what you said applies.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Okay, cool.
let's just get started with creating content that our audience wants.
Hmm.
And then when you are ready and you have the time, because it is going to take some time,
Yep.
then you can come about learning keywords for Google and YouTube. Now,
Hmm.
you do need to know how to use keywords from the beginning for Pinterest. I'm just going to throw it out there. You have to.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
You
Otherwise, you're
can't
just kind
rely
of
on going
flailing.
viral. It's not going to happen. Not for most people. And going viral on Pinterest isn't going to do what you want it to do anyways in most cases. In the majority of cases, I've seen it actually go the opposite way.
Hmm.
So learn how to use keywords from the beginning. I am publishing a keyword video here very shortly. I just have to finish up all the loose ends and get it up on YouTube. So there will be two videos on the channel today. This one and the keyword video that's going to go out. And then I also have other keyword videos for Pinterest right here on the channel. There's actually is a playlist for Pinterest SEO on the channel if you just want to
Great.
visit. And then, you know, come visit the membership. Come
Hmm.
join for a month. Let me help you one-on-one, Let me help you in our group. You'll really greatly benefit from it, I promise. Hire us one-on-one if you want help and you just want to skip the line. That's also an option. Otherwise, happy trails.
Yeah. This is a good series. I hope that everybody enjoys it. And if you watch this one but didn't catch the others, feel free to go catch the other Grow Your Audience videos, lives that we did in this series as well.
Yep, and we'll link them all together. We'll daisy chain them all together um, in
Love it.
a nice little description down below. And we will see you back here next week at our regularly scheduled programming. It's noon, right,
Yep.
Jana?
Noon Eastern time. Yep.
Noon Eastern time. We're talking about Pinterest mistakes next week. And then I will be scheduling by the end of the week a handful of more videos that we already have planned. So make sure to pay attention to the live tab here on YouTube. Get yourself notified for when those videos are going to go live. And we hope to see you soon. Bye for now.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that one.
Yeah.